Alright guys, welcome back. Time for part 2 of 3.8. So in our first new sets of examples, example number 7, we have secant of theta divided by sine of theta minus sine theta over cosine of theta. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is I want to kind of crush these two fractions into one complete one. So I need common denominators. So sine of theta on the right, top, bottom. Cosine of theta on the left, top, bottom. Okay, so I'm going to get cosine theta secant theta minus sine squared of theta over cosine theta sine of theta. Okay, so the first part I'm going to do side work on is right there. So I have cosine of theta secant of theta. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so it's really 1 over cosine of theta, which equals 1. Okay, so then I'm going to get 1 minus sine squared theta over cosine of theta sine of theta. Next side work, this guy right there. Now, I know my Pythagorean identities, sine squared theta plus cosine squared of theta equals 1. If I move sine to the right, it creates subtraction. Sorry, you might hear TV in the background. I'm trying to keep my minions quiet. Okay, so I get cosine squared of theta is 1 minus sine squared theta. So I have cosine squared of theta over cosine theta sine theta. Cosine cancels out there. I'm left with one of them on top, which gives me cosine of theta over sine of theta. Now my quotient identities tell me that cosine over sine is cotangent of theta. Alright, so now we're going to do example 8. So I have tangent over secant minus cosine. Alright, so I know tangent is sine of theta over cosine of theta, all divided by secant is 1 over cosine of theta minus cosine of theta over 1. So we need some common denominators here. So I'll do cosine theta on the right, top, bottom. So that's the sine theta. Cosine theta on top stays for now. On bottom, we'll have 1 minus cosine squared theta over cosine of theta. Alright, and if you seem to catch a pattern here, there's a lot of Pythagorean identities. We got that one again, so side work. I know sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is 1. This time I'm going to move the cosine over. So I'm going to get sine squared theta is equal to 1 minus cosine squared theta. Cool. Substitute that in. Let's see, I'll go up to here. Leave the top for now. All divided by sine squared theta over cosine of theta. So I have two fractions that are being divided. So my next line, I am going to do sine of theta over cosine of theta times the reciprocal of the denominator. And from here, I'm going to simplify. Cosines cancel out. I'll take one sign from the bottom right. Take that sign from up there, makes it 1. I'm get left with 1 over sine of theta. Alright, and then I got 1 over sine theta, which is the reciprocal of cosecant of theta. Okay. Off to example 9. I'm going to FOIL the top out. So I have cosecant squared of theta minus cosecant of theta plus cosecant of theta. Minus 1, all divided by cosecant squared of theta. Our next line, I'm going to work horizontally for this one. Okay, we see that these cancel out. As I get cosecant squared of theta minus 1 over cosecant squared of theta. I'm going to pull these apart now, because I know cosecant squared and cosecant squared can cancel out to make 1, but I have to pull the fraction apart now. I'm going to have cosecant squared of theta over cosecant squared of theta minus 1 over cosecant squared of theta. Okay, we know this simplifies to make 1. I get 1 minus 1 over cosecant squared of theta. And I know cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So I have 1 minus sine squared of theta. Alright, and again, I'll pull this and I'll show you. Sine squared of theta plus cosine squared of theta equals 1. Move the sign over and get cosine squared of theta equals 1 minus sine squared theta. So this is finally cosine squared of theta. Boom. Alright, moving on. Example 10. So I see tangents. I like to make it sine over cosine plus cosine of theta over 1 plus sine of theta. And Spies in Disguise in the background. So if you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good watch, even for you teenagers and us adults. Alright, so I'll make common denominators here. So right side needs cosine, left side needs 1 plus sine theta. Okay. So this will give me 1 plus sine theta times sine theta plus cosine squared theta over 1 plus sine theta over cosine theta. I'm going to distribute here. I get sine of theta plus sine squared of theta plus cosine squared theta. It's a little tedious problem. I'm going to leave the bottom for now. Okay, and then I see this. So my Pythagorean identity tells me this is 1. So I have sine of theta plus 1 over 1 plus sine theta cosine theta. If I put this in parentheses, sine of theta plus 1 is the same as 1 plus sine of theta. So they can cancel out. Equals 1 over cosine of theta, which reciprocal of that is secant of theta. Cool. All right, 2 more. Example 11. All right, so I look at this. I have a tangent here and a tangent in that grouping. So let's factor out tangent. Factor where you can. So I have tangent square root of theta times. So tangent square root of theta divided by tangent square root of theta is 1 minus sine squared of theta. Once again, I pull that out. So if you look at notes above, we know this becomes cosine. So tangent squared theta times cosine squared theta. And then this becomes sine squared theta over cosine squared theta. That's tangent times cosine squared theta. Boop, boop. Cancels out. Sine squared of theta. So sometimes the starting point's the toughest. You just got to kind of look at how can I factor things out. Can I combine the fractions so that I pull the fractions apart? All right, and then with example 12, same kind of thing. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, all right, well, what do I have? So in the top, I see I got, sine floating around there. And it's broken up through addition. So it's in that grouping right there, and then that grouping right there. So let's factor out sine cubed. So I get sine cubed of theta over cosecant squared of theta minus 1, all divided by cosine cubed of theta. Okay. So I have cosecant squared minus 1. So let's look over to our identities. So I have cosecant. Alright, so I see it on my board over there. So I'm going to pull that off. The identity that has cosecant says that cosecant squared of theta is equal to cotangent squared of theta minus 1. Okay, alright. Did I read it right? It's a little far. Oh, plus 1. That's right. Okay. So that's what it says. So now let's just bring the 1 over. Cosecant squared of theta minus 1 is cotangent squared of theta. Boom. Okay, so sine cubed of theta times cotangent squared of theta over cosine cubed of theta. Well, cotangent is cosine over sine. So sine cubed theta, cosine cubed theta, times cotangent squared of theta becomes cosine squared theta over sine squared theta. So let's simplify. I take both sine squares from the bottom right, take 1 from the top, both cosine squares from there, both 2 from there, which leaves me with sine of theta over cosine of theta, which is tangent of theta. Wow. All right. I thought I had more. We're all done. All right. I know this is dry. I know you're seniors. I know this is tough, but let's continue on.